and boom goes the dynamite.
Let's get ready to rumble. This is the Daily Dive here on our social media pages, the only Monday through Friday live lacrosse talk show. I am your host, Michael Karvelis, saying good morning to everyone on the West Coast, and to everyone here on the East, good afternoon. It's time for lunch. On today's show, in segment 1, our top story will be, is Rochester in danger of an epic downfall? We'll recap their season so far. It's been up and down, and also preview the final 2 games. And also in our first segment, I'll try to make a case for a certain player to be goalie of the year, and I think it will ruffle some feathers, but I'm telling you, there's a case for this guy. Our big guest by Fanatics will be Cooper Perkins of the San Diego Seals. He'll try to make light of what happened in Colorado as the Mammoth were able to get the big upset win on the Seals. And our last brew, presented by B-Res Coffee Company, code Daily Dive, will be our top 5 NLL players, week number 20. Although it's week number 2 for me, and last week I had Connor Fields at number 1. Some of you did not like that. So our top story presented by our store, and you can get awesome merchandise with this logo on it right there in the corner of your screen. Shirts like this. We have Daily Dive beanies, hoodies, you name it. Go to Daily Dive Lax on social media and check out the awesome merchandise. It's the best way to support the show as we try to grow the game. Let's start off with Rochester. Are they in danger of an epic downfall? Remember that the Rochester Nighthawks started the season 6-0. They looked incredible. They came out of absolutely nowhere. We've seen Hudson Jackson find some value in them. If they make the playoffs, it makes it even better. I know Renee and myself talked about Rochester being for real. Rylan Hartley with those iconic split saves. And then they lost 2 in a row. And now they've lost 5 of their last 6 after that. It's been a down year. The team is 9-7. If there is some silver lining, they are 5-2 at home. But the last 4 losses for this team have been a loss versus Philadelphia, a loss at Vegas, then a loss at Philadelphia, and then a loss versus Albany. If there's any consolation there in silver lining again, not just the 5-2 home record, but also the fact they've been traveling all 4 weeks. In fact, this week when they face the Georgia Swarm at home, it's going to be an epic battle of teams trying to make the playoffs. Of course, we talked about the Swarm, how they're 8-8, they're back to 500. And I told you guys yesterday, if you had told me in week 7 or week whatever that corresponds with 7 games, that the Georgia Swarm would be better out of the Rochester Nighthawks than the Swarm, I would have said, come on now, you're kidding me, right? Well, it's happening. And I wonder if Rochester losing in the last 4 weeks and 5 of the last 6 is because they're traveling. Again, the last 4 weeks, they've gone from home to down to Las Vegas, back up to Philadelphia, and then up at home to Rochester to face Albany. An Albany team that I think has been playing better in the last few weeks despite their horrible record. But make no mistake, this Rochester team still started 6-0. In fact, listen to some of these stats on how balanced their offense has become. Yeah, Connor Fields, I called him the best player in lacrosse last week. He still has 121 loose balls, 48 goals, and 55 assists. Good enough for 103 points. That's pretty stinking good in the NLL. Holden Cotoni, friend of the show, 36 goals, 42 assists. Ryan Smith, 32 goals, 39 assists. There's also another player who has 50-plus points as well. But really the key for them is going to be Rylan Hartley. And Rylan Hartley, we know it happened earlier this season. He was electric, then he kind of fell off. He's down to 11.53 goals per game against, and he's at a 78 save percentage. Not the greatest. But I'm going to make a bold prediction here because as much as I really like the Georgia Swarm team and how much better they've looked, I want to make some early predictions. The Rochester Nighthawks host the Swarm and host the Wings. I might take Rochester in both those games. I think Rochester will win this weekend against Georgia. And I think they can beat Philadelphia. Now, Philadelphia is a different animal. Philadelphia stacked up with Mitch Jones going berserk. That team is really good. But in Rochester, I like my chances. I think Rochester might have something to say and might come back more than we think they will. Next up, is Brett Dobson in contention for goalie of the year? Well, Mike, what are you talking about? We got Nick Rose, Christian Del Bianco. Listen to these stats for Brett Dobson, and one of them is the most insane of them all. The Georgia Swarm, of course, have won 6 consecutive games. Now, Brett Dobson is 5th in goals against at 10.17 and 5th in save percentage at 79.3. The Swarm are 8-5 in games he has started. They're 0-3 in games he has not. The competition was Craig Wendy, who was at under 74% save percentage. Oh, and by the way, Toronto and Calgary have better team defense. Say what you will about Calgary, about how Christian Del Bianco, it bounces off and he still does good on the rebounds. And say what you will about Nick Rose and Rosie in Toronto. Those teams are better defensively than the Swarm are. In fact, I told you guys, somebody told me at the Swarm game that the Swarm are a smaller team than other teams. And to me, if we're talking goalie of the year, how about even MVP? Now, obviously, that'll go to Dane Smith or whoever. But Brett Dobson has made a case for both things. Again, the Swarm are 8-5 in games he has played. And they're 0-3 in games he has started. They're 0-3 in games he has not started. That means something. And holding people under 10 goals numerous times is really special. I'll tell you a team that probably wishes they had a Brett Dobson. I'm kidding. We're going to talk to Cooper Perkins coming up next. We'll talk San Diego Seals, because I'm telling you, San Diego might have low-key put a dog back in the fight that we kind of brushed off even after they won the championship. We'll talk to Cooper Perkins next and to ask him what happened in Colorado. We'll be right back. Our big guest presented by Fanatics is once again the smiling emoji himself, Cooper Perkins of the San Diego Seals. Cooper, how you feeling over there?
I'm doing good, Mike. How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic myself. And are we feeling good about the Seals still, even though they lost?
I mean, I don't know what that would change. They're still the same team. They're still healthy. You know what I mean?
Hey, health is a big thing, especially for postseason runs. But I do have to ask you, since you were able to answer the tough questions, I do have to ask you, how did the Seals come up short? I know they put up 14 goals, but playing in Colorado, what happened that made the Seals fall just a tad short in that game against a low-key good team?
I mean, yeah, you said that pretty well. Colorado's a low-key good team that I think I've been down on more than most for the last 2 years, and they keep making me look stupid every time I say something like that. But I think when it comes down to it, you look at the game and it's kind of just a microcosm of what their season has been. where there was a lot of inconsistency with some really high highs and also some disappointing lows, I think. And I think the key for the Seals going forward is going to be how do they mitigate runs against themselves, because they're going to always be able to manufacture those 4, 5, 6 goal runs. It's about making sure that those opponent runs stay to 2 or 3 goals instead of ballooning to 5 or 6 or 7 like they did against Colorado. So I don't think it really tells us much of anything other than Colorado's still dangerous. I do think that there's a sense of disappointment probably that anytime you score 14 goals on Dylan Ward, you should probably win the game. But it's probably a healthy loss to some extent as well. And I think this is maybe something thrown around a little bit too much in sports, but it seems applicable here. You don't necessarily want to enter the playoffs on, a little 6-game heater feeling too high, because it's a 1-game playoff, and sometimes the gravity of a game gets lost when all you remember is winning. I thought going into this final 4-game stretch against Vegas twice and Colorado twice that the Seals need to go 3-1. 2-2 would be a disappointment. 1-3 would be bad. 0-4 would be a disaster. Obviously, 0-4 is not on the table anymore. So I think that they do need to win the last 2 games to reestablish that sense of dominance that I think was starting to build around the team. But I don't think that this setback is much more than that. It's a setback.
Yeah, I like that you said that. Like, I know you didn't use the term moral victory, but I'll do it for you. I mean, it's kind of like, it does feel kind of like you scored 14 goals against Dylan Ward. But I also have to ask you this, though. Are the Mammoth a team that, even though you've been down on, I brushed aside this year myself, do they kind of worry you more than Calgary because they have been there and done that last year?
No, not really.
Okay.
I think Calgary's a better team. I think Christian Del Bianco's having a better year than Dylan Ward.
Fair.
Outside of the playoff series last year in the West Conference Finals, Colorado hasn't had a whole lot of historical success against San Diego, Dylan Ward in particular. I don't know. I think every time I start to get an idea of what is going on, I seem to know less. I think Ty Merrow said it on Twitter. The more we learn, the less we know. And I think that's pretty true this season, especially at the West Conference. But I think that Calgary has done everything that you could ask to earn that spot as being, at the very least, the number 2 team in the conference, both from a standings perspective and from a contender standpoint. And there's not really much Colorado can do in the last 2 weeks of the season to change that. Just the body of work is too good. There are too many weapons for Calgary. Colorado's, they got gamers. They always will. They always have. They got guys that play big in big moments, but they also are just missing a lot. And it's hard to look at them and say that and granted, they were missing Ryan Lee last year, so I guess I don't know. I don't know. I'm not super impressed by Colorado. Their goal differential is abysmal, and the fact that they've won as many games as they have is a statistical miracle. But that was the same thing last year, and they won the championship. So it just goes to show how little I know, I guess, about Colorado and what to expect from them. So a long non-answer to your question, I guess.
I mean, it's a good answer though. You're right. I mean, you don't know when a team does what they did last year. You don't know, and it could be scary. It could also be okay. We can handle these guys. And also, I do have to say, traveling to Calgary is probably a little bit harder than traveling to Colorado, especially from San Diego. I'm just saying.
Yeah,
I would rather travel to Colorado.
It's an extra small flight. And for some of the guys, remember, a lot of the guys live in like the Vancouver area. So like for them, it's not that much of a difference, to hop on a flight to Calgary as opposed to hopping on a flight to Denver, San Diego. If anything, for some of them, it's closer. So I think that at the end of the day, everyone's also fighting the same travel battle, right? Not outside of like Buffalo and Rochester and Toronto. Not a lot of these teams have a huge percentage of their players living in the market. So when you get into the travel conversation, I don't know how important it really is. At least the way that the league is structured currently, that might change at some point in the future. It just, unless you're talking about one of those 3 teams that have a real, centralized, localized group, I don't think it makes that much of a difference.
That's a fair point. I have to ask you a tough question. You can just say pass on this one if you want. Brody Merrill, we also saw the fight, her insane fight in that game, but he had a game misconduct. And as I teased the preview of his game coming up, I know game misconduct can sometimes mean suspensions. I know it's very vague. Have you heard anything about suspension possibly for Brody Merrill? Just asking for the fans.
No, I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay.
It's a bigger deal if it's the last game of the regular season.
Oh,
Uh, that happened to Austin Stotts last year. He got a game misconduct in the last game of the regular season and was suspended for the first two of this year.
mm,
Um, I don't know for sure. I haven't heard anything.
right.
I should probably brush up on that rule. I think I need to be a little bit more of an authority on that question, but I don't think I actually have an answer. It's not a hard question. It's just a question that I don't know.
It was like the injury thing, like in terms of like what's different stuff, but like it's vague. Like the league is very vague about that stuff, and I get it. You don't want the fans to know everything the guys did. They see a lot of stuff.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think it would be a shame if he is suspended,
Right.
but it wouldn't be the first time that they play a game without him available in the lineup, and it won't be the last time that they play without a major part of the defense. And at some point here in the next couple of weeks, Cam Holding will be healthy again, and that'll be a pretty big boost. So
Ooh.
I don't know how much they'll miss him. Obviously, you miss your captain in any situation, but I think the defense has also matured past the point of relying so heavily on one veteran guy. They're a young group that's really talented and really athletic. So you lose a guy like that, it's definitely a loss. But if this was 3 years ago and year one of the Seals, it would be a disaster. Now in year four or whatever it is, I don't think it's. They've built a really balanced back end, and I think they're really comfortable with everything they have available there.
That's awesome. Hey, give me some previews for this Desert Dogs game again. Las Vegas is not a pushover either, and it's in San Diego. But I want this to be a rivalry so stinking bad. And Las Vegas has played you guys close twice now. What's the key to pull away and hopefully they don't do that again?
I don't know how close I think they've really played them. The games just haven't been blowouts.
That's fair.
Um, I just don't think that Vegas has the firepower
Right.
to hang in there long enough to maybe steal the game. I also think that there's going to be I think it's probably the worst week to catch the Seals because they haven't clinched home field yet. They haven't uh, set themselves up in a place where they can take a game off or rest. It's kind of an important game for getting things corrected and getting
That's
back
true.
on track. So I would not want to be Las Vegas in this situation. And it's just as simple as that. Also, you don't know what Landon Kell's situation is. If Joel Watson's playing, no knock on Joel Watson, but I have a hard time seeing the Seals offense not putting up at least 13. And that's going to be a big task for Vegas to try and match that. I think that that's a team with a really bright future and a lot of good pieces in place. And I also think they punched above their weight this year at some points and probably should be a little bit further down the standings pecking order based on what they have as opposed to how they've played. But hey, I'll never doubt Sean Williams and what they're preaching in that dressing room because they've got all the buy-in in the world. And they've got some studs. They got some guys that can make some things happen, can score some goals, can make some plays. So in the NLL, nothing is ever for sure, and I would never ever say it's a sure thing. But I think it's a pretty hefty climb for Vegas to win this game this weekend.
I will give consolation for Vegas, if it's any for them, is that I've called them a team of rejects in a good way because they have a bunch of guys that were pushed aside and now they're overachieving, and that's got to be great for them. Maybe they could play upset, but who knows?
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be the first upset they've pulled this season.
That's true. One more question because we never get to plug this. LAX metrics, is there any more work coming from you in the future soon? And if not, how's it been for the years for you?
Yeah, for the rest of the regular season, the last 2 weeks, we're just doing basic updates, later in the week usually. I'd really encourage everyone to keep an eye on Wednesdays, or rather Thursday mornings, I should say, when our weekly column in Inside Lacrosse is published. That's kind of become the focus of Lax Metrics. So rather than trying to create content for the website itself. We're focusing on just putting out numbers and leaving the data there on the website, and then publishing the creative work through Inside Lacrosse, since they've given us a platform to do so. So I nothing too crazy, nothing special between now and 2 weeks from now, but we'll have a few more installments of the By the Metrics column, and hopefully it's entertaining for you guys.
I'm a stats guy. That's because I'm a nerd, and I know people would enjoy the stats as well. But thank you so much, Cooper Perkins, for coming on the show again. And I'll say it, go Seals. How about that?
Appreciate you, Mike. Go Seals, buddy.
Oh, yeah, thanks for coming on the show once again. Cooper Perkins, everybody. It is good to see him once again. And that's when you got to see his face, and that's always a good thing on the show. Hey, he makes a good point about the Seals being hungry this weekend. And I'm hungry too, but we still got one more segment to get to. So when I come back, let's ruffle some feathers and talk about our top 5 NLL players. I've got a graphic for you. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Daily Dive Lax on all social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And also thanks for those 35 that subscribe to us on YouTube. And I know 35. Yeah, no, it's a big deal for me. And I love it. I've never had over 100 subscribers on any YouTube channel. So 35 is awesome to me. Thank you for those that are tuning in every single day that I actually do the show. It's supposed to be Monday through Friday. Last Brew by B-Risk Coffee Company, code Daily Dive. When you go to BREZ Coffee Company, they just had a birthday. I believe it was 2 years they've been around. So great job for them, and try out their awesome flavors, but use the code Daily Dive. You're welcome. Top 5 NL players. Now, last week, the list was Connor Fields, Jeff T, Dane Smith. I had, oh gosh, I forgot. I had a goalie on there last week that no one liked. I forgot what it was now. Matt Vince was the guy I had on there. And I got some pushback saying that Christian Del Bianco should have been on there. But is Christian Del Bianco on there this week? No. But that being said, I don't even want to do this. Yes, I do. Okay, there's my top 5 players for this week. Okay, listen, let me explain. Jeff Teat single-handedly kept the Riptide on top of the bench for most of that game. And the Riptide stink. Dane Smith, who's number 2 on my list, decided to go 2 assists and a goal when his team was trailing by 2, including an overtime assist on the game winner. Connor Fields did drop 2 spots because you cannot lose to Albany. I'm sorry. Number 4, here's some Calgary love for you. Zach Currier. I think two-way players are a really good thing in the NLL and a very overlooked aspect of the league. Zach Currier has like 37 points in like a godly amount of loose balls, good amount of caused turnovers. He's pretty good. And he's a big reason for Calgary's success, not just Christian Del Bianco. But the 5th spot is the goalie, and this is where I'm going to get even more people on this. We're going to go Brett Dobson. I told you guys, I'm going to read the stats again, so I won't get completely crucified. The Georgia Swarm are 8-5 in games he has started. They're 0-3 in games he has not. They have won 6 consecutive games. He is a major part of that. In my opinion, he's making a late surge for MVP, goalie of the year, at least rookie of the year. You got to give the guy rookie of the year. Seriously. If you have a vote, I do not, but if you have a vote Number 5 needs Rookie of the Year. I'm telling you. If the Swarm win these next 2 games, or at least make the playoffs, him is the reason why. Timothy Brett Dobson. That's the guy. There's your top 5, and here's the bigger version just to piss you off. I don't do these takes on purpose. I don't do them to like ruffle feathers, but it is fun when they do, I must admit. Okay, thanks so much for tuning in. Thanks to Cooper Perkins for joining the show. For awesome people who like Cooper Perkins and everyone behind the scenes of this show, shout out to LAX Metrics. Check a new one out this Thursday morning on Inside Lacrosse. I am your host, Michael Karvelis, saying we'll see you tomorrow, noon Eastern, for another edition of Daily Dive. Thanks so much. Have a great rest of your day.